Hey folks, it's Abby, and October was one hell of a month. I was so busy last month. In the very first weekend, my parents came down to visit. The next weekend was my birthday and we went over to Manchester and saw some friends, ate some good food and watched some football. The weekend after that, my friend came over from Sweden and we went around York with her, and then the weekend after that was the bookish meetup, as well as other things in between, for example, the Aurora Borealis. So it was a very busy time. Madness, madness, and I was expecting that. I said at the very beginning of October that I was expecting to read next to nothing this month because I was going to be so busy. I read 17 books, 4,933 pages, and 95 hours of audiobooking. So not even that much audiobooking. I still cannot get over it. How? When? Not about to complain. My biggest book of the month was A Psalm of Storms and Silence by Roseanne A. Brown, which comes in at 550 pages. And my oldest book of the month was A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens, which was released in 1859. Yes, me and Olivia finally finished it and we're very pleased. Let's dive into the rest of the statistics, which I have in my notebook down here. Link as always in the description to Becca's shop if you want to get anything similar with a discount. So genre, I read 2 non-fictions, 1 sci-fi, 1 classic, 9 fantasies, 3 crime mystery thrillers and 1 poetry book. For the nationalities, there were 9 English authors and 3 American authors. I'm so happy! 1 Emirati, 1 Australian, 1 Scottish, 1 Norwegian and 1 Filipino. Then for the format, I read 4 books via audiobook. I had 6 by paperback, 3 by hardback, 3 books that were mixed between audiobook and physically reading, and 1 ebook. I had a great month. Love it. Now let's dive into the actual books. Because there's 17 of them, I'm going to try not to take too long, but we'll see how that goes. Who knows? First up, Brit-ish by Afua Hirsch. This is a non-fiction all about growing up mixed race in the United Kingdom and the difficulties that that poses for obvious reasons. This is incredibly well done. It has been very well reviewed by various people of colour from across the UK. I do wish that it focused a little bit more on the intersectionality of gender and race. For example, black men are often incorrectly considered to be violent and unintelligent with these assumptions, and black women are the lowest on the social ladder, with white men being at the top. And I wish this had covered that a little bit more, but I am just niggling. This is a fantastic book. Then my Discworld read of the month was Maskerade by Terry Pratchett. This is a Phantom of the Opera retelling with Nanny Ogg and Granny Weatherwax. This was so much fun. It was wild, it was wacky, it was stupid, it was deeply enjoyable. I had a wonderful time with this book. This next one is a bit interesting. The Severed Streets by Paul Cornell. This is the second book in the London Falling trilogy. The Shadow Police trilogy, that's the one. Whilst I really enjoyed it, I struggled to put it down. I read most of it in one day, and I think it's a really good sequel. One of the actual characters is Neil Gaiman. Now this was published in 2014, so before any more recent information came to light. So for this review specifically, I will be ignoring that section, although that does make me feel weird about reading Neil Gaiman as a character. But the author didn't know that. But it's just very weird to have someone as like a public figure be created into a real character within this novel and have like an actual character arc almost, and have like plot twists around them, and they are themselves in the book. It's very odd, very weird to read. Gaiman himself signed off on it, so even though there are some not so positive portrayals, Gaiman said that was fine. Very weird, and he should be in the next book. And I'm not sure. I'm not sure. On a happier note, I reread All Systems Red by Martha Wells, the first book in the Murderbot series. I obviously gave this 5 stars. I adore this rogue sex unit with every inch of my being. A little bean. Then my biggest book of the month, and that is A Psalm of Storm and Silence by Roseanne A. Brown. This is the second and final book in the duology of A Song of Wraith and Ruins. I can't believe it took me this long to get to this book. I bought it before I finished A Song of Wraiths and Ruins because I was loving that book so much. and then took like 2-3 years to get to this, but that sounds like me. This one I didn't find as good as the first book. The first book was outstanding. This one was just really good. I still really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the character development and a little bit more of the development of the world, but I wanted a bit more to be happening. Then I read Hedge Witch by Beth. This is a collection of letters from the author to 2 individuals who are considering becoming witches. It is her guidance to them on how to become so, whether they should want to, and steps and learnings and methods about witchcraft. This is a very specific brand of witchcraft. I truthfully am not sure which one off the top of my head. It doesn't specify that, but all of the reviews about it say that it is only for this one brand of witchcraft, and so they really should display that. Additionally, this book was published in the 90s and really does show that in some aspects, with the assumption of gender roles both negatively for men and women. Also, the statement that you have to be sexual and actively want to have intercourse to be a witch feels very limiting and very of its time, like giving me Sex and the City vibes. No thank you. Then for a book I read entirely on the train from York to Manchester and back on my birthday, and that is The Killer on the Wall by Emma Kavanagh. This is a mystery thriller that is set on Hadrian's Wall in the northeast. Murders are committed and the dead bodies are propped against the wall. They think that they've solved it and they've put the guy in jail, but then decades later it starts to happen again. Did they get the wrong guy? Did he have an accomplice? I thought this was really, really interesting. The author themselves has a background in psychology, and as someone who has a partner with the same background and also did a little bit of study myself, I found it really interesting to see how that was interwoven into this book with like studies on serial killers and stuff as like a side plot. I thought that was done very well and I really enjoyed this. Like I said, blasted through it. Then for one that took me forever to get to, Faebound by Saara El-Arifi. So I did not love this as much as The Final Strife and as much as The Battle Drum, but I did still really, really enjoy it. This is a fantastic story that, whilst it is pitched as a romantasy, and romance is very much a core part of it, it is not overwhelmed by that romance, and so I was still able to really enjoy the plot progression. There are these magical creatures called Obeah in this book, and seeing how we learn about them throughout the novel was so fascinating. I am definitely wanting to pick up the sequel. Let's hope I can get a special edition. Then finally, me and Olivia read A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. We didn't actually have too much of this left to read this month, so it only took us, I think, 5 days of reading 2 chapters each day, which was fantastic. This one is all about the French Revolution and a family that is French living in England and how they are impacted by the French Revolution. It's convoluted but explained very well, and I really enjoyed this. This is not as good as A Christmas Carol for me, but is one of my favourite Dickens that I've read so far. I've only read 4, but it's definitely one of my top ones. Really enjoyed it. I think it's really well done, and bonus to boot is that I have now finished this entire bind-up and it can go on my red shelves. So pleased. Apparently this was the month of trying something new, because then I also read another romantasy book, Who Am I? And that is Swordcrossed by Freya Marske. Again, the romance side of this, it seems to be fine. I don't care. I'm just like, yes, wonderful, wonderful, get on with it. But the actual plot side of this, where we have different families who control different aspects of business, and one family is not doing as financially well as they appear to be, and so there is this set-up marriage, and they have to hire a swordsman to defend the wedding, and the romance goes from there with the groom and the swordsman. I really enjoyed how the characters all interact with each other. I really enjoyed how the plot progressed and how we learnt more about this world and this specific dynamic within the world. I think it was done really well and I had a great time with it. Then I got an interesting version of a birthday card from my parents, and it was actually this little book of poetry instead. 10 poems from Scotland, selected and introduced by Don Paterson. This is a lovely alternative to a birthday card and I'm very glad to have it on my shelves. Then an interesting one is Triflers Need Not Apply by Camilla Bruce. This one was an unhaul from Chloe, thank you Chloe, which I think came from Victoria first, so this has been around the houses. I am still deciding whether or not I keep it, but I think I enjoyed it more than Chloe did. This is about a woman who is a Norwegian immigrant to the United States and ends up repeatedly murdering men, whether that is to satisfy the urges inside of her or to gain their money and advantage in the world. It was really, really interesting. This is written by a Norwegian woman, so really interesting to see that aspect of classical Norwegian culture intermixed with living in the up-and-coming United States, as well as then seeing the mindset of this woman who repetitively does not blame herself for her actions and manages to comprehend them away, and also has such a deep love for her children. She's also underwent such severe trauma as a very young child. It is a really, really interesting book, and I'm very glad that I got the chance to pick it up. Then the book that I forgot out of my thumbnail stack, and if you saw how difficult it was to take that thumbnail, oh no, I'm not doing it again. And that is The Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien. So of course it is just this section of this bind-up. We are starting The Two Towers in November. As this goes up, I will have started it. I'm very excited. This is my 5-star read of the month. I was not expecting that. It is technically a reread, but I read it via audiobook 2 years ago, and I don't think I paid as much attention as I should have, because I was having a fantastic time with this. It felt like I was reading a brand new book. I understand. I do. Then I read one of my birthday books, thank you so much, Hannah from Ladder M, and she got me Cat People by Hannah Hillam. And I was just in the mood for a short little read, and I was like, you know what, let's go for it. And this is a graphic novel slash comic where essentially this person is sucked into an alternate reality where humans, there go the gift notes, where humans are the pets and the cats instead are bigger and like look after them the way that we look after the cats. Very fun, very silly, a good time. Then I read a book on my Kindle, mainly because I realised that I had a challenge to myself this year to read 3 books from my Kindle TBR. And I had read 0. So I picked one up, and that was Etty Steele, Vampire Hunter by Grayson. Oh, I forget, it's on screen, I'm very sorry. This is a middle grade fantasy book. She's a vampire hunter, and she goes to school and there's a new boy there, and she is convinced that he is a vampire, and her best friend keeps wanting to befriend him, and so she's trying to keep her best friend safe, but she keeps getting annoyed at her for being mean to the new kid. The whole thing is done really well. I blasted through it. Like, I know it's only short, it was like 200 pages, but I still blasted through it really quickly. I think it's really fun, and I really would recommend this if you're wanting to get a book for a kid that age range, because it was a great time. There were some curious situations with the mother though, like it's obviously trying to give middle grade age children a message, but as an adult reading it, she just seems xenophobic as shit. Then penultimately I have Holy Island by L.J.R.R. I was buddy reading this with Carrie from Caring for Books. We read 1 chapter every single day, apart from the epilogue and the last chapter, which we read on the 30th because neither of us could resist. This was so interesting. There was too much romance in it for me personally, although then when I did reread about it, it does say like, oh yeah, there's romance in here, so can't complain too much. But I did really enjoy the mystery. I think that was really well done. I wanted more of the kind of pagan rituals than we got. I'm kind of hoping that further on in the series there's more of that. I wanted more explanation. There needed to be more. And the plot twist. But yes, I had a wonderful time buddy reading this with Carrie, and whilst it was lovingly infuriating to only be able to read 1 chapter at a time because every single chapter has something going on in it, at the same time it meant that me and Carrie were able to discuss everything in a lot of depth, and I think we both got more out of it that way. However, antagonising it may have been. And then I realised that I am potentially not going to reach my finishing out series goal for this year, so I added another book on, seeing as I had the space to, onto the end of my reading, and that is The Ever-Cruel Kingdom by Chupeco, the second and last book in the Never Tilting World duology. This was one that I read simultaneously via audiobook and reading with my eyes. I tried to do it by audiobook and then just realised that I just wanted to look at it as well. There are twins. They don't know that the other exists. They live on opposite sides of this planet, which is very Earth-like, and the planet has stopped rotating. And so one side of the planet is soaking wet and the other side is burning hot and dry. And I don't want to spoil what happens in this one, but of course the twins don't know about each other, so stuff happens in the first book. This is of course the continuation. I really enjoyed it. I didn't enjoy it quite as much as the first one, but I still had a fantastic time with it, and I am really glad that I finally finished out this YA duology before I was too old for YA, because I'm reaching there now. And yeah, I had a fantastic time with like 90% of the books that I read this month. It was such a fantastic month. I still don't understand how I fit in so much. Like, I also wasn't well. I had 4 different various like vaccinations and injections this month, so my body was going through it, and then I was really busy, and then I read 17 books. Like, I know some of them were small, but like, come on. I shouldn't complain, I should just be happy about it. If you would like to see my November TBR, it's very short, so hopefully I manage that. I don't think I will be reading quite this much in November, but you never know, we'll see. Let me know in the comments down below, folks, if you've read any of these and what you thought of them if you have. And wish me luck for November, because I don't think that I'm going to be able to keep this up. And yet my silly little brain is going to want to. Oh no. Thank you so much for watching, folks, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!